y'all better come with the energy. This got to be lit. This got to be amazing. God has graced us to be in this time right now. This is a divine appointment. We've all want to do a podcast. The time is now. Jasmine, don't be acting shy. Annie, don't be acting shy. Devin, I need to see that confidence like you lead in praise and worship. Come on, like this is go time right now.
Welcome to the Yellow Podcast.
Woo! We out here.
Yeah, so this podcast, the goal is to just get under the surface of relationships, not to do the gender war thing. That's old.
Like red pill, blue pill.
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
We are already showing it at the seats.
Right.
Yeah.
Unity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, we just Zav and I happen to be matching today.
Like legit.
Like, we did not plan this. And then the light color vibe here is just
the queens.
We're unified.
Yeah.
Just on one accord.
One accord. Amen. Amen. So the Yellow Podcast. Why is it called the Yellow Podcast? Because the dating pool is
Amarillo.
Amarillo. Yeah, mustard yellow. And why? It's really because like there's a lot of sociological things that happen in the backgrounds of relationships that we often miss, right? And we get caught up in, oh, men are like this, women are like that. You know, this foolishness that is not really helping anybody. Right. Anyway, I'm very glad to be here with my 3 co-hosts. We have Annie C. Cadet.
Yes.
And you know what? I'll let her
Hello.
introduce herself. Go ahead.
Yes. So I'm Anna C. Annie is fine also. I'm born and raised New York, but we out here in Texas. We're in Houston.
Yes.
And I'm so happy to be here.
Single or dating?
Single, unmarried.
She's available, y'all.
Available.
Yes.
So I'm Jasmine Hanfield, the newly Mrs. Hanfield. This is my husband. He'll introduce himself. Yeah, I'm here. That's what I
Love
have.
to see it.
Amen.
Okay. What up, y'all? It's SwabZ on the ones and twos. I am so excited to be here with my friends and my wife. We're going to talk about relationships. We're just going to take it to the next level. Like, if you not ready, you need to get ready because it's about to be lit, y'all.
Yep.
And I know that Zav, I want you to do the shameless plug to
I'm nervous.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, plug it in.
He's
bro.
not nervous.
What else do you have going on?
Oh my gosh. So I'm affectionately known as the plant-based brother. Is that what we were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. So I'm the plant-based brother. You know, I collaborate with brands and I'm all about health and wellness. So if you're watching this and you're in the health and wellness space, like call me, DM me, well, call my assistant, aka my wife.
Wife for
then,
sure.
Right. And then she's gonna get in contact with me, like all things health and wellness. Let's get it.
Let's go. Okay, so our topic today, how much of a hand does God have in our relationships? Let's talk about it.
Dun dun dun. How much of a hand does he have, or should he have?
Well, should is a whole nother podcast topic almost. So we
Legit.
can touch that. Let's start with does.
And are we talking about romantic relationships?
Romantic relationships, really going towards monogamous marriage. We're not doing the throuple conversation here.
No poly, no.
None of that.
No.
We're talking
Okay,
none of
just
that.
checking.
Yeah, man and wife. What's the deal? How does God move in our relationships?
Well, go ahead. No, you
No,
got it.
please.
Oh man, I think it starts with. I think we were talking before the cameras got on about Genesis 1. Like legit. Like I think a lot of us men, we want that companionship. I didn't realize how important a helpmeet was until I got married. And so I'm thinking God has got to be the foundation. And it sounds like me saying it right now even sounds so cliche. Like, oh yeah, God should be the foundation. But it's like, no, like this is what he wanted from Genesis 1. Like he wanted us to be in relationship, fellas with a woman, and vice versa. Because he knows that I can say for me, I know being married, I'm only 3 months in, y'all. Just you know.
Mercy God.
Listen, Lord, I'm not 3 years yet. But I know the stuff that he has for Jasmine and I couldn't do that single. Like we're gonna do some great things.
Amen.
So I think that's the in realizing, like, okay, this is my purpose partner. How can we serve the kingdom of God together? Right? I'm not, if your mind, if God isn't in it, you're not even thinking about that, right?
Exactly.
So
Facts.
that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jasmine.
Likewise. I mean, just even honestly, even the desire to be married for me came later. And that came once I grew more spiritually and knew more about my word. So just the whole timeline of events when Zav and I started dating, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm doing it differently this time because I'm letting you show me what's up. And it worked out.
Yeah.
So I can honestly say, like, taking a different approach and really taking my hands off and letting God do the thing, then, you know, I made it to where I was trying to go. But we're still on a journey together, right? Because marriage is not a destination. I feel like a lot of singles need to keep that in mind. Like, you're still on a journey. So, yeah.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I don't think that I would be married if God did not have a direct 100% involvement in my relationship.
Facts.
Like, we can talk about my story with Martha, like, in depth another time. But, like, literally, if anything was off, if we started talking later, if we were at any other developmental stage from when we started talking in the beginning, 13 years ago, that's when we started our actual
That's
full.
awesome.
It's a long time.
Matter of fact, actually, it's actually a 15-year history from when we were, like, it might have been 16. She was like 14. When we first had that first interaction. If anything had happened on a different timeline, it wouldn't have worked.
Wow.
It wouldn't have worked. And, like, God, he literally grew us for each other and with each other.
Amen.
All the way up until we got married 3 years ago. And now, I realized that marriage is like when you get your driver's license. That's when you really start learning how to drive.
No, legit.
That's
'Cause
good.
Did you have practice? I mean, you got your permit. You can have a permit.
You have your permit?
Right?
Yeah.
Dating
you
stage,
get on the road a
courting
little
stage?
bit. You get in the car, you get in the highway. Yeah. But then you're technically supposed to be with a supervisor, right? Somebody who's
true.
your parent or
Yeah.
your older cousin.
Or before
whoever.
nightfall.
Or exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But when you get that license, you pass the test, you get that card in your hand, in your wallet, now you're on the road, you're by yourself. Now that's when you really start learning the road, really start learning how people drive on the road. Texas is crazy. Y'all, don't drive in Texas if you can.
Don't.
But
Not too much. Not too much.
not
on
too
Texas.
much.
Not too much.
You got enough crazy on the road. But it's just like that. Like, even from knowing yourself, right?
That's good.
Like, you learn, marriage is like a mirror, right? It's like you look at yourself in your spouse and your spouse sees all your flaws, right? And that's when the beef starts. When everything hits the fan, that's really like the beginning of marriage. That's like the gate, right? So we know that, well, we feel here that God kind of guides our relationships. Andy, what's your perspective on that?
I am 100% sure that God definitely guides relationships, because as Zav was saying back in Genesis 1, that was his original plan. And for me, I think because I'm single, I think I look at Genesis 1 a little bit different, simply because the way I view it and the way my life looks right now is Genesis 1 looks like community to me. So that relational, having people with me, doing life with people doesn't look like marriage just yet. It looks like learning to do life with people, learning to, that iron sharpens iron in my friendships, in my sisterhoods, in my brotherhoods. And so I know that God has an intention for marriage to further sharpen me in the future. But right now I'm learning what that looks like. That Genesis 1 looks like just family, just friendships, just relationships, and letting people mold me in that way so that I can eventually be ready for my husband.
Yeah. Something you just made, like, I thought of when you said that too, is how much community plays a part when you're in a romantic relationship too. Because, like, your village, the people that God has placed in your life, like, to pour into you, to show you, or what have you, anything in your life. It's like sometimes people get into romantic relationships, and I'm not saying you got your friends or people should know all your business, right? But there's something to be said when your village meets the person you're romantically interested in, because I believe that there's a covering in that as well, that God has placed, the people that God has placed in your life meeting that person, because they may see something in one of your blind spots. Like they've been your friend all this time. Like that doesn't change now that you're in a romantic relationship. They may see like maybe your level of attraction to something that may be unhealthy, or maybe there's a behavior. It could be a myriad of things, but having those people in your life, you know, that community plays a part. And I feel like when people get in a romantic relationship and they don't want to bring that friend around, could be because that could be a red flag. And I'm not saying it's just because, you know, you want to timings, everything, right? Maybe you're like, I don't even know if this is somebody I want to bring around my people yet, because I don't know if it's viable, right? But once you decide, okay, I'm about to start kicking it with them, you're spending a lot of time with them, and if your friends have like no idea and it's going somewhere, you know, why that, right? Like, why would you even want that type of setup? So I feel like, you know, there's a reason that community should also, like that friendship, that iron, should meet the romantic interest in your life.
Right. I completely agree. Because, I do be bringing people around you guys to vet for me for sure. Because I think that we have community for that specific reason. Like I don't invite you guys, and I don't use the word brothers, sisters, friend lightly. And so for me, even being able to call you guys my friends, that should mean that I trust you guys to have my back in a way that it has my back even more than I could have my own back, because you'll see angles for me that I can't see. Right. And so I completely agree. I think community and bringing your friends along the journey of your dating, courtship, relationship is super needed, because like they catch on way quicker than we do. Right.
Yeah, I definitely believe I had listened to some friends in the past. Like maybe I would have got here sooner, but God's timing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I feel like God is all about community, and I feel like Christianity is all about community.
Or it should be.
Should be. Okay. So you said should be, very important distinction, because I think that what's lost on a lot of people is the difference between Christianity and church culture. I will always say this. Church culture is antithetical to Christianity, because Christianity promotes togetherness, wholeness, forgiveness, covering up wrongs in obviously a healthy way, forgiving, like helping people to grow, right? But what's church culture? Church culture is isolating. It is, there's no forgiveness. This grudge is being held for 20, 25, 30 years.
Right.
It's, pretend, this. All that being said, knowing that God does, gives us community, gives us relationships. How does Satan, the enemy, try to have his say in our relationships? How does he try to get in the way?
I think that definitely, I often think about the analogy from when we were like children and watched cartoons, like Satan on one side and God on one side. And the reality is, if we are not in our word, if we don't know what God's voice sounds like, if we are not in community, if we're not praying, if we're not talking to God, if we're not fasting, if we're not doing any of these things, then Satan's voice is going to be really loud, and we're just going to oblige to his voice. Like, maybe you shouldn't apologize to your wife, to your friend, to whomever. And people are just okay with it. Like you said, holding grudges. So listening to the enemy's voice become even louder than it should be is a surefire way to have his voice in your ear and for him to prevail and for God's voice to get softer and softer and softer. So yeah, I think that the enemy's voice, by not spending time with God, is like, that's how he prevails for a lot of us each and every time.
And it's crazy you said his voice getting softer and softer, because his voice already do be soft. It's already soft. Like, he doesn't always talk in the big ways. Sometimes it's like, a calm, right? We already have scriptural reference for that.
Right.
With, Lord have mercy. What was the name of the prophet who talked with God, or God moved in the fire, moved in the wind, moved in the... I sound like I don't know my Bible right now.
Ooh, right.
I don't want to... It wasn't Moses. It was...
I don't even remember.
Still small voice. No. That was... No, because Moses was...
God was not in the wind. God was not in
Moses was burning bush.
No, that was when he was young, but when he was old and he wanted to see the back of God, the face of God. I think it was that time when God moved.
I'm gonna go back to my word, y'all.
Right. Take two.
Yeah, take two. But yeah, God talks to us He doesn't talk to us with fear. He doesn't talk to us with anger. He talks to us directly, sometimes softly, right? So there's so many influences that will try to drown out that voice, yeah? Like, when it comes to, listening to God as he's trying to guide us to the right people, what do we do when he's not telling us what we want to hear?
About that, though.
Yeah.
So
Elijah. It was Elijah.
Elijah. See, there we go.
Yes.
Our studio audience chiming in. We
but
thank you, studio
it's
audience.
in your
Thank
heart,
y'all.
right?
Yeah.
So you were even able to reference. You may not have known, but when the word is in your heart.
I was going to say Isaiah, but I felt it wrong. It did not feel right.
One of those shows.
One of the Eli.
Yeah.
Elisha.
What were you saying? What was your question? I forgot your question.
Well, your initial question was, how does the enemy show up in relationships?
Yeah.
Oh,
then
to
you were
confuse
saying-
us.
Yes, that was the original question. Let's fix that.
So actually, it could seem small, right? But pettiness, I feel like, is a big way. Whether it's romantic relationship, whether it's friendships, and whenever I feel like our culture today is so clap back, about winning. It's oh, I'm gonna be petty, and I always want to tell the saints that is not walking in love. To be a petty moment. You may feel like you're winning. Imagine if we give God so many reasons to be petty. I'm thank God he's not, because
That's not his character.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Thank God he's not, right? Because we would be okay. Okay. So I think that's a small yet big way, because I feel like when people allow pettiness when they plant those seeds, then it's constant. It's going to be a back and forth, and then you're trying to find ways to outdo your levels of petty, that it can this spark turns into now it's a forest fire.
Right.
So I think that people need to be really mindful what they're really doing when you call themselves I'm gonna be petty for the sake of winning, right? Because it's when you're especially we're learning in marriage, it's not always about winning. It could be something so small. I thought about texting, DMing. What's Kev on Stage wife's name?
Vanessa?
Melissa.
Melissa.
What's her last name?
I'm sorry, Kevin.
Fredericks.
Yeah, Fredericks. I don't want to be Mrs. Kev on Stage, but I think that's her Instagram name. But anyway, we had a little debate about a color or something. I wanted to DM him and be girl, what color were your shoes? But I was it's not about winning. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter.
You should. I want you to. Because you're wrong. And it's okay to be wrong.
Babe, you're missing my point. I'm okay with being wrong. That's not the point, because I do think I'm right, but I'm okay with being wrong. But I'm also okay with not being right. That's my point. It's not even about reaching out to her to be I'm right. It's not about that. And even if I could be in this moment or something else, I am learning that it's not about winning. It's not because let's say I was right? What is that? What benefit would that bring to the topic, to the situation? Okay, great. So it's not always about winning, babe.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think for me, it's I think sometimes one of the things I've worked on is trying to make sure that that I'm intentional with understanding the devil's voice versus God's voice, but also understanding that sometimes the devil's voice sounds like mine and my desires. Because I think sometimes in Christian culture, we can be so quick to oh, the devil tempted me and the devil this. But sometimes the devil's temptation looks like what Annie wanted in that moment.
Flesh looks like the flesh.
Yeah, very much so. And
Let's
so,
be real.
Yeah.
Real.
Yeah. And so similar to what Zob was saying, how we need to silence that voice. But I think instead of working on silencing the voice, I think we need to make sure that our desires are aligning with God's desires, so that when, instead of it feeling like two different shoulders we're fighting, we're on the side of our voice sounds like what God wants for us. And I think that's one of the hard parts of Christianity, is just making sure that you're not desiring the worldly stuff, the flesh stuff, because it's so easy. And it's so easy to say oh, the devil made me do it. But then it's nah, you wanted that. I wanted that myself. And making sure that God is healing that aspect of me, that his desires become my desires.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another great tool of the devil, resentment.
Oh,
Guilty.
guilty.
Because I think lack of communication is the breeding ground of resentment, right? And the hard part about communication is that it's a buzzword too, right? Communication is a buzzword.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
to really be able to communicate the desires inside, not everybody knows how to do that, right?
Right.
That's something that can be a learned skill, right? So when people think about, talking with somebody and resolving issues, the reality is that most people choose between two options, silence and violence, right?
Yeah.
So silence is a side that is my struggle, right? Because having not grown up in a way that permitted me to like understand myself on the inside, you don't always know what to express,
Right.
much less how to express it. So but even though it's not expressed, even though it's not understood, it's still there. Bacteria still grows in the dark. You might not see it, but it's still there. So it starts coming out in other ways, right? And resentment is that one thing, right? Where you realize that there's a need that you want it to be met. Or maybe you don't even realize, but there is a need, subconsciously or consciously, that has to be met, but it's not being met, but you don't know how to communicate it. And then it breeds pain, like almost like a physical pain. On
It can like
inside.
manifest
Yeah.
as like pain.
Yeah.
Because
right?
it seems so heavy and whatnot. I remember this quote, I'll never forget it, and it's like resentment is like urinating on yourself.
Oh my God.
You're the only one who feels it.
funny.
So I'm someone who like totally like I'm like a duck. Like Jasmine will tell you, like I'm not like holding on to stuff. I'm just like letting it go. I probably forgot it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, life is too short. For most things. I'm human or whatnot. But resentment is I'm not gonna say I've never felt those feelings, but it just reminds us of, Christianity and the church, like forgiveness, right? I don't want to forgive, right? And so it's just like, man, am I acting like Jesus in this moment or nah? So I think we have to always like bring ourselves back to that thought. So
Yeah. And from the psychological standpoint, there's like this pinwheel that we like to use in psychology. I'm studying psychology, and it has the major emotions that we feel. So there's like sadness, there's
the emotion
anger.
wheel?
Yeah.
The feeling wheel. Yeah.
And
I
there's
love
like
that.
sadness, anger, happiness and stuff. But then in those big feelings, there's so many subgroups. And so like Devin was saying, you'll feel anger, but underneath the anger, what you are failing to communicate in the midst of feeling the anger is that a smaller portion is like the disappointment, the sadness, the feeling burdensome, the like so many subgroups of it that like our emotions, we only know how to act out in like maybe 6 top emotions, but there's so much more underneath that. And it's learning yourself, learning your environment. And again, back to iron sharpening iron, like letting people be able to tell you about yourself, to let you know like, hey sis, what you're feeling right now is not just anger. Like you're not angry at him. He disappointed you. You're sad, or you're this and that, and allowing someone to speak that into you. Because sometimes what looks like is bubbling over the surface is but there's so much more underneath that you're
So
just
much
beginning to understand.
Yeah.
So check this out. You just talked about the emotion wheel. Now it has all the words and different emotions, right? But there's an even cooler emotion wheel that tells you what physical feelings you might be able to associate with these different feelings.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, you might know that you're angry, right? And you might feel your heart racing. You might feel sweaty. You might feel angry, yes, but that racing heart is also indication of insecurity. Also
Wow.
an indication of fear. So
anxiety. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. That's good.
So just like a headache could mean a couple different things. Could mean that you need sleep. Could mean that you have cancer.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
What
Right?
MD?
Exactly. So I'll put that emotion wheel in our show notes, and you'll have access to that. But it was transformative for me because forgive the I want us to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable. So I'll start with myself. like under like that emotion wheel was transformative for me because I might not know exactly what I'm feeling, but I can feel that my hands are like sweaty. I can feel that my heart's racing. I can feel that I'm feeling distant or cold or, you know, slow. Like these different things that might point to loneliness or insecurity or, you know, depression. It's just all these things.
Legit.
You know?
Legit.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. So let's touch back into that other question I'd asked. When God is telling you something that you don't want to hear about your relationships, how do we tackle that? Like, how do we face it? Like, I mean, it happens on the single side and on the married side, right?
That's fair.
And yeah, let's
So
talk
I'll
about
start.
it.
So I had a sage. So we had like a whole wedding weekend. So Friday, forgot what we did. Saturday was church. Sunday had a sage where all the fellas, most of them are married. It was my other friend who was engaged as well. We got together, and a sage just means wisdom, right? So it was just a whole bunch of married dudes there. And one of my boys, he was just like, when I got married, that's when I started hearing from the Holy Spirit even stronger and even greater. And I was like now that I'm married, I'm like, yo, that's my testimony. Like when I say something, when I do something, you know, as far as we were talking about communication earlier, I'm like, God, I hear you, like, and I have to go apologize, and I have to, like, God checks my heart because it is a mirror, right? Because I don't know if you guys have heard this quote on social media before, but it's like, think about your enemy, think about your boss that you don't like. A lot of times, the stuff that we see in others is stuff that we probably don't even like about ourselves. Or what if we don't even have it within ourselves? It's just like, oh, Devin and Zav are so confident, man. I can't stand those dudes, right? And it's because like you desire to be confident. You desire to be on the stage. So everything points back to like a heart posture. So I was just thinking about like when we're feeling resentment, when we're feeling lonely, when we don't want to forgive, going back to like, okay, well, what is the root? I think when we get to the root and figure out like, well, where did this stem from? But that's hard work. That's hard work. It takes going to therapy. It takes, you know, Jazz and I talk about often just learning and unlearning different things that aren't helpful. That in my 35 years, I'm realizing some of the stuff that I did, whether it's in relationships or otherwise, that like sustained me when I was younger are going to be to my detriment at 35 in personal relationships, in business relationships, in my marriage or what. And it's like, nah, like you can't do that anymore. But a lot of us are living off of survival. A lot of us are living off of like, okay, what was and lack. And it's just like, nah, we have got to ask God to free us from that stuff. So yeah, I just feel very strongly about that.
No, and it's good. And I think it's so similar what you said about unlearning, like, because like you said, it's not just that we are just wanting to stay in a pattern. That pattern worked. That pattern may have saved you at one aspect of your life. And so it's not just that you're just this person that's tends to be stuck in your ways. Like a lot of people, especially this generation, like love to act like, oh, I am the way I am, like love me the way I am. But people don't get that way without it having worked at some point. Right. And so that unlearning is such a crucial pattern, such a crucial point. But that unlearning hurts more because that saved you, that helped you at one point. And so it's getting to the point where realizing like you said, it helped you at one point, but now it's detrimental to your marriage. That's so good.
Yeah. Especially with that silence versus violence dilemma that most people face.
Yeah.
Silence might have preserved somebody in an abusive upbringing.
Right.
Violence or acting out or whatever might have gotten your needs met
Right.
at a certain phase in your life, but that doesn't serve us anymore at whatever phase of life we're in. Even in single dating relationships, right? And even when you're married, like silence doesn't get your needs met anymore. Violence doesn't get your needs met anymore, not long term, right? And like just something that came to me is, I hope it's not too much of a pivot, but marriage, you know how your spouse might grow, might be better. Your boyfriend might grow, girlfriend might grow, might be better over time. But there's always going to be something, right? That's not, let's say 100% what you want, right? The crazy thing is, like, and it's a constant reminder, how is God supposed to teach us unconditional love if our spouses are perfect?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's let's talk about that. Let's unpack that.
Yeah. I'll say that's hard from a single standpoint because I am dating, boyfriend, whatever. And so I think for so long, a lot of the reason why at some points I was single is because I had this high standard of, because I've waited this long. Granted, I'm almost 30. That's really not that long. But because I waited, right. But because in my head I had waited this long, I deserved this perfect, complete, whole, like, I've been to therapy, so he must have been to therapy. He needs to have worked through this because I worked through this. And I thought that I earned that. And social media has taught me that I earned that. Like, to find this successful, I'm the prize. I need to find this successful man who's gonna pay my bill. Oh my God. Alpha male. But yeah, like, these things that social media has taught me, like, I deserve, but I am unlearning that in not completely bowing down to, like, he's nothing of what I want, or that's not my standard. Because at the end of the day, I'm God's daughter. Like, he has a standard that he wants for me too. I'm not accepting anybody, but also that people do come unperfect, and it's learning, like, what unperfect works for me, what long term can I live with. But that's really hard. It's something I'm still struggling and still dealing with, because it's hard.
And that's why it's so important, though, to really be connected to God and allow God to, like, however that you were talking about, how does one know they hear from God, or in what ways, or what have you, however you know that is. Because I can speak to the opposite of that. When I was single, I felt like I was making concessions for things because I know, people aren't perfect, and I'm sure there are areas that I need to grow into, and then, like, trying to decipher what is an area that, like, they could, like, they're still growing in that area. I haven't always been where I am, but was finding myself in places that I shouldn't have been because that just ignoring, painting a flag pink or fuchsia or what have you. That's red, orange. But aside from that, just, like, that's why, like, my own reasoning wasn't adequate to determine those things. Like, I'm not a perfect person and my husband's not perfect, but it doesn't look anything like God. Like, God will grace you for the person's thing, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So it's like, you don't have to figure out how do I have to make. It's like you won't even really be thinking about that thing, until and then when it shows itself, you're like, wow, because there are even things that some of Zah's friends, like his homegirls, be like, Jazz, how do you do that? I'm just like, it doesn't bother me. Like, and I just, it's like, period.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And is the end. No, but really, it's like I'm hearing you say it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what that feels like, but it feels different when you're graced for it. Yeah.
That's so good. I need to write that down. Are y'all writing that down? I'm writing it down. All right.
Yeah. She said it all.
That's good.
I got you on that. So, something that I was driving home from work one day. I don't know if I was upset about something. Maybe I was just thinking all the way home from work.
Wait, did you have music on, or was it silent?
No, I think it was silent at that point because I was just in my groove, just thinking. Yeah. And it just thought across my mind, if, like, I believe that God chose Martha for me. God chose it, hand-picked, beautiful package, handed it to me, right? In all her imperfection and amazing qualities. Now when I think about something that I might want from Martha, and something I really want really, really bad, I had to think to myself, which of her positive traits would I trade for this one thing that I'm asking for?
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I feel like, I think about this thought. I think about this quite often.
Really?
Not that.
Careful now. Careful now.
Careful
now.
No, I think about the fact that is because the reality is, like, let's talk about Inception, right? So, like, hypothetically speaking, let's say she doesn't cook or whatnot.
Mercy God.
And then, right, and you like to eat, right? But then you look on Instagram and it's like this woman cooking like mad meals. Like, yo, I want my wife to cook like that, right? And I think about this thought often is that it's always going to be someone that is like a better cook, that has a nicer body, that is smarter, that has more money. And it's just, we have got to, singles and married people have got to get in our mind again that it would be nice to trade this thing, like kind of like a hall pass. What is that thing? Is it called a hall pass? Like a,
I guess.
I'm not giving you any words for this.
okay, okay.
Careful now.
Right.
You go
Like,
for
a
it.
Christian hall pass in the sense of like, okay, man, I wish my girl would do this a little bit more, or had this quality. But I think that we have to, just think that we have to. The humbling part is when we are introspective and we take a step back and kind of like put the shoe on the same foot and just like, well, maybe she wants me to fix things around the house.
Right.
And I ain't even trying to do that. Like,
Right.
I'm going to hire somebody to do that. So I think,
Boss moves.
yeah, like boss moves, like straight up. So I often think about that. Like, there's always going to be someone that X, Y, and Z, right? But then if the shoe was on the other foot, I'm not going to do certain things, or she's not going to do certain things. So she's not that person or whatnot. And like, how do we live in that world? How can we live in this space without like fantasizing and just the comparison trap and whatnot, which is a whole nother thing. Like, and when it comes to relationships, we could talk about that the next episode for sure.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Are you writing this down? I'm writing
Legit.
it.
I also would like to suggest, I've been thinking about this while we've been talking. In the beginning, you asked how much of a hand does God play in our relationships? And I would also like to suggest, even when we are choosing to do our own thing, you're even choosing to be in relationships that we have no business in or what have you, that he's still playing a part because he's keeping us. I've been kept a lot in decisions and choices that I only made. Like, I had nothing to do with that, but he still kept me. He was still with me. He brought me out of that thing. So he was still playing his hand in it. But and I don't think God ever just has his hands completely off of us, right?
Yeah.
Because when you listen to different testimonies, it's like, wow, like only God kept you do that, or brought XYZ through something. Like, he was there with you the whole time. He was letting you do the
Make your
thing.
choice,
Make
right.
your choice.
Right.
But he's not like totally just gonna, however that looks. So I suggest that he's still playing a hand even when you're like running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very important point. And if even when we're not faithful to God, he's faithful to us.
Amen.
There you go.
Thank God.
Right.
Thank
Yeah.
God
At
for
least somebody's
that.
faithful in the relationship.
Right.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. His faithfulness is always continuing, regardless of what we got going on. Like, whatever mess we got stuck in, whatever choices we made, whoever we chose to be around at the wrong time, or whatever signals we did not receive from the Lord, he's there, Any other thoughts before we land this plane?
I was gonna ask, do you think we only, because you mentioned like when we don't want to hear like, the feedback or like what God has to say about relationships, do you think we only question if we're actually hearing from God when it's something we don't want to hear?
Oh my gosh, I 100% think so. Yeah.
Because you're like, wait, is that me? Did I, like, what is it? So then I wonder if that's an indicator. Okay, I heard something I didn't want to hear. That must be God. Otherwise, why would I then start, like, questioning where am I hearing it from? Just a thought.
Yeah, it's very convenient, right?
Yeah, right. That's all I'm saying.
And God said what I wanted to hear. Yeah, it must be God.
Right.
This wasn't what I wanted to hear. Let me pray about this some more.
Right.
Yeah, maybe I'll go to this party with this person.
Right.
And do this and that, even though
Or the hesitation, too. Like, sometimes, we've all hesitated, like, taking something to God because of what we think he might say. To me, I'm like, okay, is that already an indicator, you may be in a place you shouldn't be? Or, because why do you not want to hear?
That's good. I think I'll speak to that though, because even from a single standpoint, sometimes I will say, probably in the past, I'm better about it now, but in the past I have struggled bringing certain people like before God, and not even because I wanted to know. But sometimes I think you get to a point in a Christian, like in your relationship with God, where sometimes you're scared of the yes too, because like I'm unmarried, so I've been told no before, and then I'm like, how much would my life shift if God actually tells me yes, or I really can't leave, like I'm with this person, like okay, God, you want me to be with them, like that I think scares me as well, because sometimes I agree with what you guys were saying about us doing it from a selfish posture and a disobedient posture. But I think sometimes obedience is scary too. And I think like a yes from God sometimes is even scarier than a no from God, because a no, it just takes obedience, but a yes takes faith, and a yes takes change of posture. And okay. Like, so I think from both standpoints, like I've struggled with on both sides of bringing things before God.
That's good.
Yeah, I definitely think that, it is the hesitancy and all of that. It's like a telltale sign. But even going deeper, when you're not even like talking to God or communicating with him, like, because you have no business doing it. I think that's even worse, right? So if you're like, should I bring this to God? Even having that thought is different than like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, man. Bump God. Like, I'm like, I ain't even trying to hear what God's trying to say right now. So I think it all reminds me when people ask the question, like, dang, I don't know if I feel far away from God. I don't know if God is with me. I don't know if I'm saved. Like, just all this stuff. And the fact that you're even asking that question, like, you're on the right track. God is still with you. He's still with all of us. He hasn't left us. But I think that it's along those same lines.
Yeah, 100%. I had a reply, but I think enough has been said. I think if I keep going, we're going to be here all night. So I just wanted to wrap this up by saying that from our perspective, God, he's in, through, and around all of our relationships, whether we want him to be or not.
Yeah.
It's just, when God is leading, there's no better situation than that, So, love you guys.
Love you, bro.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
And just want to say to everybody in the world, heal responsibly.
Yellow Pill signing out.